Okay. It has been a while. Oh, there we go. And then this is like off the screen for some reason. Okay. Cool. So, Claude Code. Best practices for agentic coding. Okay, Claude Code is a command line tool for agentic coding. This post covers tips and tricks that have proven effective for Claude Code across various code bases, languages, and environments. All right, interesting. What are we going to learn? We recently released Claude Code, a command line tool for agentic coding. Developed as a research project, Claude Code gives Anthropic engineers and researchers a more native way to integrate Claude into their coding workflows. Claude Code is intentionally low level and unopinionated, providing close to raw model access without forcing specific workflows. This design philosophy creates a flexible, customizable, scriptable, and safe power tool. While powerful, this flexibility presents a learning curve for engineers new to agentic coding tools, at least until they develop their own best practices. This post outlines general patterns that have proven effective both for Anthropic's internal teams and for external engineers using Claude Code across various code bases, languages, and environments. Nothing in this list is set in stone nor universally applicable. Consider these suggestions as starting points. We encourage you to experiment and find out what works best for you. Looking for more detailed information, our comprehensive documentation at claude.ai/code covers all the features mentioned in this post and provides additional examples, implementation details, and advanced techniques. Okay, so this is the best practice number one, which is to customize your setup. So Claude Code. So I think maybe we can just start drawing like what is Claude Code. So weird. So Claude Code, right? And we're saying this is a command line tool for agentic coding. Comic Shans, eh? Oh, I see. These are all different font families. Okay. And there's no bold? Is that true? Hmm. Yeah, this is very interesting. So I guess you can't make bold, right? You can use another text tool and you can make it large or you can put it into some other format, but you can't edit the code or sorry, the text directly. That's like a really weird but useful side discussion, which is what features, right, are important and how do they affect you? So does that really affect me that I can't make it bold, right? I'm slightly frustrated and then maybe I move on. I like go on the internet, I Google what I just did. Maybe I go to the post that says this is where it's being tracked. But it is interesting when you think about building software. Like, since something doesn't have something and maybe other tools do, should you build it? I don't know. But anyways, customize your setup. So Claude Code is an agentic coding assistant that automatically pulls context into prompts. This context gathering consumes time and tokens, but you can optimize it through environment tuning. Okay, so okay, so, and then there's like the user. Okay, so a user creates prompts, and those prompts are sent to Claude Code. And Claude Code uses context Okay, so far this is our like way of interacting, and then like the response can come through text as a response. So maybe we write that. Okay. Okay, so something like that so far. That's kind of like a general purpose interaction. So let's see. Claude Code is an agentic coding, right, so we read that. Create Claude.md files. Claude.md is a special file that Claude automatically pulls into a context when starting a conversation. This makes an ideal, okay, so then we have a special type. Was that called context? Claude.md, sorry. Okay. Contain, this should be uses. So common bash commands, core files and utilities. Okay, so this is an interesting set of capabilities, right? So common bash commands is like effectively a weird model context protocol server, right? You're saying like, here's a set of capabilities that I want you to use. And it's actually a subset. So this is saying something like, and then okay. So that's like one piece of context. What are the other pieces of context? So files and utility functions. So this is like, RAG in a sense, right? Where what's happening here, where do I put that? Maybe here, or maybe here. Is this tool, and I don't want to draw this all out, but like the core files and utility functions. So it knows in theory about, like, this thing can do right? So when you specify in Claude some context, this is really acting as a constraint. And this is an example of that constraint where you could execute any bash command, and then this claude.md is specifying a subset which you would prefer it to execute. Similarly, core files and utility functions. So this is saying, like, I have the ability to read all what is this called? Right? So these are like the basic MCP, if you will, capabilities that Claude Code has. And then this Claude.md is just doing a subset of those things, or it's preferring some of those things. So I guess it's delimiting a preference, but it doesn't mean that's what it will do. It's, I guess, in some ways like fine tuning. Code style guidelines. Again, it doesn't need to do this, but it could. Testing instructions, repository etiquette, developer environment setup. Okay, any expected behaviors or warnings particular to the project. Okay, so that's saying, like, if there's any quirks, you can document them and maybe like ignore them. So it's like an ignore list. And then other information you want Claude to remember. There's no required format. We recommend keeping them concise and human readable. Okay, so we'll take this and we can put an example here. Left, can we make this look like code? Okay. So let's look at this example. And is there padding? No. I guess it doesn't matter too much. The only thing that matters is that, most likely. Oh, this is, okay. Okay. So bash commands, npm run build, build the project, run the type checker, code style. So these are things that it could figure out, but I guess this is like a shortcut. So again, this is like in some ways RAG, in some ways fine tuning, because you've got preferences specified. But it's not an MCP. So like these bash commands aren't built in to restrict, to strictly filter. They're kind of just preferential. It may run something completely different if it chooses to. I had that where I had a run pipeline command, which would run some other commands underneath. And I said, just use this. And it would run the other commands, like an npm command if it chose to. So that's an interesting thing to know is these aren't actually rules that it will follow. These are preferences that are desirable. Okay. And workflow, be sure to type check when you're done making a series of code changes. Prefer running single tests and not the whole test suite for performance. Okay, whatever. So you can place it in several locations, any parent directory. That's very interesting. I wonder if it pulls in. It doesn't say if it pulls. If it pulls these in a cascading form. So if you have like 5 directories and you have one claude.md in each directory, is it going to load all 5? Or is it just going to load one? I guess it will because it's also looking in your home folder. So that applies to all your sessions on demand in those child directories. Okay. Tune your claude.md files. Your claude.md files become part of Claude's prompts, so they should be refined like any frequently used prompt. A common mistake is adding extensive content without iterating on its effectiveness. Take time to experiment and determine. Okay, so this is interesting, right? So now it's not just your code that you have to maintain the prompts themselves, because they're going to produce a deterministic output of some level of accuracy. And your prompts are kind of this fuzzy context filtering, preferencing stuff, right? That may or may not yield better results. You don't know if you were to just write the same thing with or without the claude.md file, you could do an A/B test effectively, right? So I think there's something to say. What if you were to adopt the Claude file on one prompt and not adopt the Claude file on another prompt, right? I think one of the things that we should get into is parallel executions of differing levels of context. So one day you can have this Claude file, not one day. One execution is with the Claude, one is without the Claude, and what happens as a context changes. You can add content to your claude.md manually or press the number key to give Claude instruction that it will automatically incorporate into the relevant claude.md. I'm getting sad already. I feel like this is like just basics. This is like a marketing article. Prompt improver. Okay. Improve prompts through automated analysis and enhancement. Feedback on the current issues with Claude's output, example inputs, how the prompt improver works. Hello, great streamer. Oh, I gotta go on multi-stream. I clarify that you have low followers, viewers, and chatters. You have a qualified channel broadcaster. I will get involved in your channel to gain massive followers and a wide audience to affiliate with. If you're already affiliated, I will work on getting you verified and start earning $100 every streaming. Trust me, no bot contact me on Discord as Stream Broadcast. Thank you so much, Stream Broadcast. I appreciate that. How the prompt improver works. Example identification locates and extracts examples from your prompt template. Initial draft creates a structured template with clear sections and XML tags. Chain of thought refinement adds and refines detailed reasoning instructions. Example enhancement updates examples to demonstrate the new reasoning process. Okay. How to use the prompt improver. Submit your prompt template. Sample inputs. What is a test case generator? Generate prompt. I don't know if this is useful. Hey, my headphones aren't working right now. Can you chat instead? By the way, how are you? No, I cannot. Thank you, though. There are a lot of people who have phones that don't work. I'm not exactly sure why. Okay. Okay, so this is great documentation. Unfortunately, this is not. E.g., adding emphasis with important or you must to improve adherence. Okay. Curate Claude's list of allowed tools. By default, Claude Code requests permission for any action that might modify your system. File writes, many bash commands, MCP tools, etc. We designed Claude Code with this deliberately conservative approach to prioritize security. You can customize the allow list to permit additional tools that you know are safe or to allow potentially unsafe tools that are easy to undo, e.g. file editing, git commit. There are 4 ways to manage allow. Okay, so this is fine. Yeah. So you have a tools list, you can edit them. If using GitHub, install the GitHub CLI. Claude knows how to use the GitHub CLI to interact with GitHub for creating issues, opening pull requests, reading comments, and more. With GitHub installed, Claude can access the GitHub API or MCP server if you have that. This is so sad. If you really think about this, these are not the things that are difficult about software engineering, but I know that it is probably very easy to think that these are the hard parts about software engineering. And if you're new to software engineering, maybe these actually are. Give Claude more tools. Claude has access to your shell environment where you can build up sets of convenience scripts and functions for it just like you would for yourself. It can also leverage more complex tools. So this is a very useful piece of information. One of the things I found out was what you would expect to work is to have a GitHub repo, let's say, or even a local node modules folder and say, hey, this library isn't working. Can you figure out why it's not working? There's 2 constraints here. One is by default, because node modules is git ignored, it won't look into node modules. The reason node modules is git ignored is not because it's a security concern. It's because you don't want it to be checked into Git because it's a performance issue. You're caching a bunch of things that you could just download. The consequence of that is you could either remove it from git ignore, so you're just passing those around. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. The problem is you're managing a lot of diffs for things that don't matter. I think that's ultimately the reason why. These are artifacts and you don't really care about maintaining a Git repository's changes to files that you're using as if they don't even exist. But the other problem is when you say, okay, well, go on the internet and browse the internet and find these files. It doesn't for some reason, and it hallucinates. I was using it this morning and it was telling me that this file existed that didn't exist. And it was giving me code that didn't exist. And it was saying you have to do something in a very particular way. That wasn't true, but it didn't know that, and it wouldn't look up the file. Or whatever it was looking up, if it was a cached version of a page, it seemed to disagree with what was actually happening. So there's a lot of interesting things. As soon as I installed the GitHub MCP server, it started to work. Meaning it actually could find the files on GitHub and it would use the MCP command. So very useful to know. And I think Like another caveat with using these tools is it may be that if you have multiple MCP servers running, it doesn't know which one to use. I don't know if that's true or not, but I feel like that's a problem, and I've heard people tell me that's a problem. Use Claude with bash tools. Claude inherits your bash environment, giving it access to all your tools, your computer. While Claude knows common utilities like Unix tools and GitHub, it won't know about your custom bash tools without instructions. Okay, so if you have special bash tools, tell Claude the tool name with usage examples. Tell Claude, okay, so this is just giving it context that it may not have by default. Okay, use Claude with MCP. All right, as a client. I mean, so this is an interesting one, right? This is just a standard way to do what the Claude.md would do. As a client, it can connect to any number of MCP servers to access your tools in 3 ways: in project config, in global config, in a checked-in mcp.json file. Interesting. So using custom / commands for repeated workflows, debugging loops, log analysis, etc., store prompt templates in markdown files with the .claude / commands folder. These become available through the / commands menu when you type /. You can check these commands into Git and make them available for the rest of your team. Custom / commands can include the special keyword arguments to pass parameters from command invocation. For example, here's a / command that you could use to automatically pull and fix a GitHub issue. Please analyze and fix the GitHub issue arguments. Follow these steps. Okay. Remember to use the GitHub CLI for all GitHub related tasks. Okay, very interesting. Putting the above content into Claude commands fix GitHub issue makes it available as project fix GitHub issue command in Claude Code. You could then, for example, use project fix GitHub issue 1, 2, 3, 4 and have Claude fix issue 1, 2, 3, 4. Similarly, you can add your own personal commands to the. Okay, this is all really good if you constrain the model. Try common workflows. Claude Code doesn't impose a specific workflow, giving you the flexibility to use it how you want. Within the space, this flexibility affords several successful patterns for effectively using Claude Code. Within the space, this flexibility affords several successful patterns for effectively using Claude Code have emerged across our community of users. A. Explore, plan, code, commit. This versatile workflow suits many problems. Ask Claude to read relevant files, images, or URLs, providing either general pointers, read the file that handles logging, or specific file names, read logging.py, but explicitly tell it not to write any code just yet. This is part of the workflow where you should consider strong use of subagents, especially for complex problems. Telling Claude to use subagents to verify details or investigate particular questions it might have, especially early on in a conversation or task, tends to preserve context availability without much downside in terms of lost efficiency. Ask Claude to make a plan for how to approach a specific problem. We recommend using the word think to trigger extended thinking mode, which gives Claude additional computation time to evaluate alternatives more thoroughly. These specific phrases are mapped directly to increasing levels of thinking budget in the system. Think, think hard, think harder, ultra think. Interesting. Each level allocates progressively more thinking budget for Claude to use. If the results of this step seem unreasonable, okay, you can have Claude create a document or a GitHub issue with its plan so that you can reset to this spot if the implementation, step 3, isn't what you want. Ask Claude to implement its solution in code. This is also a good place to ask it to explicitly verify the reasonableness of its solution as it implements pieces of the solution. Ask Claude to commit the result and create a pull request. If relevant, this is also a good time to have Claude update any readmes or change logs with an explanation of what it just did. Okay. Steps 1 and 2 are crucial. Without them, Claude tends to jump straight to coding a solution. While sometimes that's what you want, asking Claude to research and plan first significantly improves performance for problems requiring deeper thinking up front. Yeah. This is very interesting, actually. There's a good Verchecki, or is it Stuart Sierra? There is Design and Practice. This is probably a very good talk.
Thanks everyone for coming.
To use and see if it actually works. Note to self. Okay. Write, test, commit. Code, iterate, commit. This is an Anthropic favorite workflow for changes that are easily verifiable with unit integration or end-to-end tests. Test-driven development becomes even more powerful with agentic coding. Ask Claude to write tests based on expected input-output pairs. Be explicit about the fact that you're doing test-driven development so it avoids creating mock implementations. It's so funny it took so long for mock implementations to go away. That is so funny. Even for functionality that doesn't yet exist in the code base, design the interface you wish to have is effectively what that's saying. That's so funny. Tell Claude to run the tests and confirm they fail. Explicitly telling it not to write any implementation code at this stage is often helpful. Yes. Ask Claude to commit the tests when you're satisfied with them, and then ask Claude to write tests, code that passes the test, instructing it not to modify the tests to make them pass. Tell Claude to keep going until all tests pass. It will usually take a few iterations for Claude to write code, run the tests, adjust the code, and run the tests again. At this stage, it can help to ask to verify with independent subagents that the implementation isn't overfitting to the test. That's not a problem. If the test isn't specified in a way that fully encompasses the problem, then you just write another test. There's no such thing as overfitting. The addition 2 + 2 should equal 4 means that that test, if it passes, because the code is returning the number 4, is correct. And what you need to do is write a better test. In addition to that, or to change that test, to write your actual expectation, which is that any two numbers added together result in the sum of those two numbers. And it's much more difficult to write that test, but that's what you're actually trying to test. You're not trying to test the specific case of 2 + 2 = 4. You can use random number generators. You can use an implementation that already exists. And if you're doing something novel, you can make sure those work. It's interesting to think about first principles. Like, what if you're literally writing addition? I don't know a good answer to that other than like truth tables. Like, you have tables of answers, which is effectively what you do to prove that it's good enough. Maybe that's the only thing you can do. Okay, ask Claude to commit the code once you're satisfied with the changes. Okay. Claude performs best when it has a clear target to iterate against, a visual mock, a test case, or another kind of output. By providing expected outputs like tests, Claude can make changes, evaluate results, and incrementally improve until it succeeds. Write code, screenshot, result, iterate. Similar to testing workflow, you can provide Claude with visual targets. This is better implemented using something like a, I guess it doesn't know that it's just using a web application. Give Claude a way to take a browser screenshot with Puppeteer, MCP server. Yeah, okay. Give Claude a visual mock by copying and pasting or drag and dropping an image. Ask Claude to implement the design in code. Like humans, Claude's outputs tend to improve significantly with iteration. While the first version might be good, after 2 to 3 iterations, it will typically look much better. Give Claude the tools to see its output for best results. Safe YOLO mode. Instead of supervising Claude, you can use Claude dangerously, skip permissions to bypass all permissions, checks, and let Claude work uninterrupted until completion. This works well for workflows like fixing lint errors or generating boilerplate code. Letting Claude run arbitrary commands is risky and can result in data loss, system corruption, or even data exfiltration via prompt injection attacks. To minimize these risks, use dangerously skip permissions in a container without internet access. You can follow this reference implementation using Docker Dev containers. Okay, Codebase Q&A. While onboarding to a new codebase, use Claude Code for learning and exploration. You can ask Claude the same sorts of questions you would ask another engineer on the project when pair programming. Claude can agentically search the codebase and answer general questions like, how does logging work? How do I make a new API endpoint? What does async move do in line with? Okay, so a few different examples. At Anthropic, using Claude Code in this way has become our core onboarding workflow, significantly improving ramp-up time and reducing load on other engineers. No special prompting is required. Simply ask questions and Claude will explore the code to find answers. Okay. Use Claude to interact with Git. Claude can effectively handle many Git operations. Many Anthropic engineers use Claude for 90+% of our Git interactions, searching Git history to answer questions like what changes made it into v123, who owns this particular feature, or why was the API designed this way. It helps to explicitly prompt Claude to look through Git history to answer queries like this. Write commit messages. Claude will look at your changes and automatically compose messages. Yes. Complex, reverting, resolving. Okay. It's very interesting because this is like one of the cases where if you don't know what you're doing, this definitely puts you into dangerous territory. Use Claude to interact with GitHub, creating pull requests, one-shot resolutions for simple code review comments. Just tell it to fix the comments in your PR. Fix failing builds, categorizing and triaging open issues. Okay. Use Claude to work with Jupyter notebooks. Interpret outputs, including images, providing a fast. Okay. Optimize your workflow. Be specific in your instructions. Improve significantly with more specific instructions, especially on first attempts. Giving clear directions up front reduces the need for course corrections later. For example, okay. Summarize how the API came to be. Okay, so this makes a case for effectively knowing how to write clear instructions. Claude can infer intent, but it can't read minds. Okay. Give Claude images. With images and diagrams through several methods. Paste screenshots, drag and drop images, provide file paths. What's interesting is when do you provide an image and when do you provide text? Design mocks, visual charts for analysis and debugging. If you're not adding visuals to context, it can still be helpful to be clear with Claude about how important it is for the result to be visually appealing. Mention files you want Claude to look at or work on. Okay, so you can provide it context, give Claude URLs, okay. To add domains to your allow list, course correct early and often, while auto accept mode, shift tab to toggle lets Claude work autonomously. You'll typically get better results by being inactive. Okay, so this is like the ratcheting effect. This is like, I think what is most useful to consider is you're doing this. Ideally. Right? So like the entropy of the system is going to start getting a little crazy, and ideally you move it down every iteration, whatever that might be for you. And that takes discipline, right? And that takes understanding in order to make sure that you continue to have some level of acceptable code quality. Or you don't, right? I mean, it's really interesting to think about whether that even matters anymore. A lot of code bases are bad. If this can like make things better, you know what would be interesting to do? let's like pull in, not me. What if we go to like explore? Okay. How to cook. Interesting. What is this? Cursor Pro. Oh, interesting. Awesome MCP servers. Okay, interesting. A GUI agent application built on TARS that allows you to control your computer using natural language. Diagrams for any GitHub repository. Cool. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay. YouTube music. AI agents for beginners. New Snow. Oh, News Now. News Now. Deep Live Cam. Okay. N8N is interesting. Awesome LLM apps. MCP Go. MCP Playwright. Awesome cursor rules. Wow, it's all AI, eh? You know what would be interesting? Doing a video on using all of these and seeing what the results would be. Okay. That's interesting that everything is... Okay, so what's here? What makes this different? Okay, anyways, the point of this was if you pull this, I already have MCP. Anyways, the idea would be take this code, let it analyze this code, and explain it. So I do have Windsurf. Let me see if this works. Okay, let's see what this does. Is there a way to make this bigger? Oh, weird. It's just analyzing my own library. Oh, I didn't put the link in there. Okay, so I presume this will work. Yeah, okay. So it's working. So that's very interesting. So you can like look at any repo, and if you cared to, you could understand. Okay, so it looks at the package.json. So that commander, given that the tool executes terminal commands and modifies files based on potentially AI generated input, ensuring robust input sanitization, preventing command injection, and carefully managing file path access are paramount. The implementation details of these security measures are critical but not visible from metadata alone. Okay, so you can ask it to investigate. Okay, issue. The extract commands function performs basic parsing focused on separators and quotes. It does not fully understand complex shell syntax like command substitution, variable expansion, process substitution, globbing, or various forms of obfuscation, e.g., CMD or CMD with quotes in between. An attacker could potentially craft a command string that bypasses the extract commands logic and the block commands check. For example, if rm is blocked, a command like echo rm might be parsed by extract commands just echo. If echo is not blocked, validate command would return true. However, if the original unparsed string is later executed by a shell, the shell will perform the command substitution, executing the malicious rm command that the validation missed. How the string is executed after validation. If it uses exec or spawn, this is a critical vulnerability. If it uses spawn correctly without the shell and parses ARIA, the risk is lower. validate the input arguments. Oh my God. Wow. Very interesting. So I just looked up like a repo and it found a critical vulnerability. Very interesting. While auto accept mode, shift tab to toggle lets Claude work autonomously. You'll typically get better results by being an active collaborator and guiding Claude's approach. The best results by thoroughly explaining the task to Claude at the beginning, but you can also course correct Claude at any time. These 4 tools help with course correction. Make a plan, press escape to interrupt, double tap escape to jump back in history, and then ask Claude to undo changes. It's interesting that the changes aren't, like in Windsurf, you have the reject. I don't know why that doesn't have reject. Use clear to keep context focused. Yeah, see, I mean, clear is useful around your iterations. It's like this thing, as soon as you've like optimized it again, clear everything. Use checklists and scratch pads for complex workflows. For large tasks within multiple steps or requiring exhaustive solutions like code migrations, fixing numerous lint errors, or running complex build scripts, improve performance by having Claude use a markdown file or even a GitHub issue as a checklist and working scratch pad. For example, to fix a large number of lint issues, you can do the following. Writing all the errors and one by one. Yeah, that's fine. Pass data into Claude. Several methods exist for providing data to Claude. Copy and paste directly in your prompt. Pipe into Claude code. Tell Claude to pull data. Ask Claude to read files. Okay. Use headless mode to automate your infrastructure. Headless mode for non-interactive contexts like CI, pre-commit hooks, build scripts, and automation. Use the -p flag with a prompt to enable headless mode and output format stream JSON for streaming JSON output. Note that headless mode does not persist between sessions. You have to trigger it each session. Use Claude for issue triage. Right. Use Claude as a linter. Can provide subjective code reviews. Okay, up level with multi-Claude workflows. Running multiple Claude instances in parallel. Yes. What is this? Multi-Claude workflows. Have one Claude write code, use another Claude to verify. Or start a second Claude in another terminal. Have the second Claude review the first Claude's work. Okay. Separate working scratch pads. Have multiple checkouts of your repo. Another interesting thing is to have multiple Claudes write the code and have like a committee evaluate the effectiveness. There's something to multi-agent that's probably useful. Rather than waiting for Claude to complete each step, something many engineers at Anthropic do is create 3 to 4 Git checkouts in separate folders. Open each folder in separate terminal tabs. Start Claude, yes. In each folder with different tasks. Cycle through the progress. No, that's not what I was thinking I was going to say, but interesting. This approach shines for multiple independent tasks, offering a lighter weight alternative to multiple checkouts. Git work trees allows you to check out multiple branches from the same repository into separate directories. Each work tree has its own working directory with isolated files while sharing the same Git history and reflog. Using Git work trees enables you to run multiple Claude sessions simultaneously on different parts of your project, each focused on its own independent task. For instance, you might have one Claude refactoring your authentication system while another builds a completely, I don't like that. Some tips. Yeah, not a fan of that. Use headless mode with a custom harness. Integrates Claude code programmatically into larger workflows while leveraging its built-in tools and system prompt. There are 2 primary patterns for using headless mode. Fanning out handles large migrations or analysis, e.g. analyzing sentiment in hundreds of logs or analyzing thousands of CSVs. Have Claude write a script to generate a task list. For example, generate a list of 2,000 files that need to be migrated from framework A to framework B. Loop through tasks, calling Claude code or Claude programmatically for each and giving it a task and a set of tools it can use. For example, Claude P migrate foo.py from React. Migrate foo.py from React to Vue. Interesting. When you are done, you must return the string OK if you succeeded or fail if the task failed. Allowed tools edit bash. Okay. Run the script several times and refine your prompt to get the desired outcome. Pipelining integrates Claude into existing data processing pipelines. Call Claude-P your prompt JSON your command, where your command is the next step of the processing pipeline. That's it. JSON output optional can help provide structure for easier automated processing. For both of these cases, oh, I see. So you can do Claude-P and headless means that you're not responding directly. Okay. It can be useful to use the verbose flag. There are tips. Okay. This is a very good article. Maybe bookmark it in reading list. Okay. So I have 2 other ones. I don't know if I want to get to them right now. I think they're useful. This one I probably can get through quickly, but maybe I just wait. I'll do these tomorrow and the next day. All right. Thank you very much for joining, and I'll probably be back tomorrow.